Brian, what's up, man? Welcome to Dad Edge, dude.
Larry, it's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
You bet, man. I'm excited for this conversation. I'm excited for you to share some killer news that you actually got here recently. Hey, I think that this particular show is very timely. You are in the health field. Many people right now are very conscious of their health, and not only their physical health, mental and emotional health, because I think it's no secret that men in particular have been kind of going through quite a season of hell over the past 18 months. If you really think about, I was talking about this on a live video this morning, actually, is that this whole thing with COVID and everything that we're up against, politically, economically, uncertainty, stress, masks, no masks, vaccinated, not vaccinated. It's like there's this low hum, sometimes high, of stress that is constantly there. It's like always, it's like this hamster wheel that just doesn't stop running. And if you really look at men right now, mentally and emotionally, we've really taken a beating. I did some research this morning, and the divorce rate's up 3% the past 18 months.
Wow.
Suicide is up 5% for men between the ages of 20 and 50. 5%, which is crazy. That was the number one killer anyway for men in that age group. But now it's up 5%. Domestic violence has increased by 9%. Drugs and alcohol use, if you just look at the sale of alcohol, it's gone up 22% in the past 18 months, right?
Wow.
So people, hey, look, people are really trying to cope right now. They're
Mhm.
really trying to, we're a lot of us are surviving out there. And that's why I'm so eager to talk to you. I mean, number one, obviously you're a member of Dad Edge Alliance Accelerator, and you've got a thriving business that's right in this wheelhouse. And I'm excited to talk to you today about how might we, how might we improve our physical, mental, and emotional well-being in the face of adversity.
I think that's a great topic to cover today, Larry. I mean, I'm just excited to bring some kind of value to the audience here and just hope that someone can take just a little something from this episode and make their life a little better because that's my philosophy. That's what I'm all about. Improving yourself better daily. Well, and that comes from Alex Van Houten. But that philosophy of better daily, I love that 1% better. And yeah, let's talk about how people can do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start off with some fun questions first.
Yeah,
Good with that?
yeah, absolutely.
Well, some icebreakers, right? So the audience
Yeah.
get to know all about who Brian Bisher is. What is the number one thing you enjoy about being a dad?
Oh man, I first thing comes to mind is hugs. Like just I walk in the door yesterday from coming home from the hospital, and my son just went right to me and just hugged my leg, and just the joy and of connecting with my son. I think now sons really. I got two of
Yeah.
them, um, but that connection that I get between a father and a son is my favorite thing.
Yeah, man. And why is that so important to you? The son and the father son bond. What's meaningful?
Wow, that really goes back to my story as a child. I didn't really know much about this until just recently, but my parents, they lost a son right before I was born. And so they were both, heartbroken. They were withdrawn. And they both told me that it was really tough for me to come to this world after them losing a son. And so my dad, even we were painting this room I'm sitting in right now, and he tells me that, I'll be honest, Brian, I was just there. I was not mentally there, I was physically there. And so I don't think I realized the impact that it had on me, like at such, like a deep level that from this early age, I just craved connection and just
Hmm.
wanting to be wanted. And I know we got real deep real quick, but this this comes from this past that I have that of unrealized pain, that I unrecognized pain, of not having that connection with my father that is so important from the early ages, like that when you can't even communicate with your kid. I mean, you're still forming that connection, you're still forming that bond that is going to be everlasting. And without that, people can really struggle to know their inherent worth. So that's why it's so important for me to cultivate that connection with my sons and starting from day one. So
Okay, so time out. Wow. I think a lot of people probably are under the impression that most podcasters are very robotic. They know exactly what stories are coming next. They know what questions to ask to tee up those stories. My podcast is not like that. I go, for those of you guys who have been listening to me for any amount of time, my strategy when I interview somebody is I know quite a bit about them, but I allow the interview to take shape as far as where the energy is going, what I feel the audience probably wants to hear most of, the stories that emerge that I wasn't expecting, right? Because one thing I've noticed is when I was doing this in the early days, right? 6 years ago, I was very robotic. I have my agenda that I want to cover. I don't do that. I haven't done that for years. And for those of you guys in the audience, you don't know this. This is actually our second take of this interview because uh, my mic did not pick up my side of the conversation, unfortunately. But I say this, man, every time. Everything happens for a reason. You didn't share this story the first time, and
right.
I'm sitting here like deer in the headlights when you said that because I didn't hear that story the first time we recorded, so I didn't even know that that was a thing. I want to really talk about something here since it emerged right now. You said the words physically there, mentally and emotionally wasn't there. And because of that, you grew up in an environment where you craved connection and you're still that way. I've gotten to know you very, very well in the mastermind group, right? Where I see you
Mhm.
every single week. And I can tell you're one of those people that is very genuinely curious. You are very authentic. You're the real person. And and the cool thing about you is you ask these really good questions to get to know the real side of people, the depth and the quality of the relationship. So what you just said, I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense knowing what I know about Brian. But I want to talk about this because there are a lot of dads out there who struggle with this. And it's not intentional. Like, man, if you
Mhm.
ask any dad, like, hey, what do you want most of? I want to be present. I want to be intentional. I want to be purposeful. And I'm physically there, but sometimes I just can't shut my mind off. And it goes back to exactly how we started this show. It's like this low hum of stress and uncertainty and distraction. And even if we don't have a pandemic, we can have other things that are stressing and are uncertain, that it's like that hamster wheel in the background of where we're physically there. I know I was there, man, big time. And there are still days where I'm still like that, but I try to pivot quickly when I can. But now that you know that and you understood firsthand, I have two questions. Number one is, what was it like growing up like that? And not that your dad was abusive or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
At all. In fact, he probably had best of intentions and he's probably a very good, obviously a very good dad.
Yeah.
However, you did experience that element of physically present, mentally, emotionally present for some period of time because it was hard for him, and for good
Mhm.
reason, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you understand firsthand what that feels like, even as being an adult father now, right? And then ways that we can avoid that and ways that we can actually become intentional and create connection and create depth with our kids that we really want. So, first question again, what were your feelings like? Let's go back to like little Brian. What did it feel like? Did you feel like something was missing? Were you maybe even try to be even more clingy because you wanted the connection, or what was that like for you?
Man, I'm gonna start tearing up just thinking about this, but uh, I I felt not good enough. I didn't. I just felt I wasn't worthy of their attention. I think, and like you said, no fault to them. They went through a traumatic experience, and it's just um, something that they had to personally grow through. I just happened to be there for it, and I think in a way they may have tried to cope with the loss of my brother by having me closer to him, and you know, I I don't know. I think there was this, you know, we don't think about it, but babies know. They know if you're giving them your attention or not, if you're looking at your phone. They know if you're watching TV. They know if you're doing something else. They just know that. And like, just, I don't, I look at pictures of me as a child and I don't see the vitality in me that I have I see in my son. So like the light in my eyes, uh, and so I just know there was this feeling not good enough. Like I didn't have that inherent worth that everybody is born with. And initially growing up, it did make me crave a lot of attention. It made me act out. It made me do things to just like like tempers, outbursts, um, and just so many not behavioral disturbances that got me like to see a counselor. They never seek that for me, but I was quiet, reserved, and then boom, like I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. Basically, is what it comes down to, because I didn't get that like sense that again, no fault to my parents. I don't want this to be, but just there was probably like this lack of just um you know I don't even know how to put it into words to
Maybe
make
like
it
acceptance in a way.
acceptance. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Man, I get that. And I love how you also put like, hey, it's no fault of their own. They were walking through their own crucibles. I had these conversations with my kids all the time. Luckily, I had my two older boys, my two younger boys too. They're very complimentary. And this may sound self-serving, and I don't mean it to, because I'm an idiot. I'm a moron. I make mistakes every day, right? Doing this dad thing. But my kids are always like, you're such a good dad. And I was like, oh, that's so kind of you. You say that now, but don't worry. You'll realize when you're older the baggage that I put on you some way, shape, or form. I'm not even kidding. Like, no, no,
yeah,
no, you're good. No, I'm serious. Like when you start having your kids, you're gonna be scratching your head, being like, wow, I can't believe dad did that. Yeah, it will happen. So I tell them all the time, I was like, I'm creating baggage for you right now.
yeah,
You'll have it. No matter how good of parents we are, there's always going to be some sort of, here's the thing, right? We're all human. You can be
mm-hmm.
a little human, like a kid, walking through your own crosses to bear and crucibles and all that. Or you can be an adult parent and still be walking through your own crosses and crucibles to bear and all that good stuff. The thing that changes is that as a kid, you look at your parents as if they know everything. They know
Mm-hmm.
all about the world. And in a way, they're kind of perfect, right? Well, he's dad. He said that. So it's got to be true. It's got to be right. That's not the case. And you realize that stuff when you get older, is that, oh, wow, dad was actually a human being, And the way I describe it to my kids is like this all the time. My son, who's 15, was asking me, what's it like being a dad? I was like, dude, it's hard.
Yeah,
He's like, but you seem like you like it a lot of the times, or some of the times. I was like, I do. It's the best thing in the world. It will also bring you to your knees. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, do you remember what it was like your first day of school? Like for whatever grade you start. He's like, yeah. I was like, that's what it's like being a father almost every day, in a way, smaller way. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, right now you're 15 years old in 90 days. And today is the first day I've raised a 15-year-old and 90 days old. And tomorrow will be the first day that I'm raising a 15-year-old and 91 days old. And there are different phases and different things that we go through. Some things I'm okay at, and some things I fall flat on my face, as you see me do,
yeah.
right? But so you're obviously married now. You've got two
Mm-hmm.
boys. How has that childhood and that experience maybe paved the way for things that you're doing differently in your life now?
Well, I think we can even tie all this together. What you originally wanted to bring up in this conversation is, what this pandemic has done. But I think it's just shown me the importance of taking care of myself and my mental, my physical, my emotional health, so that I can show up the best self I can be for them that day. Like it's not going to be perfect every day, and you got to be compassionate for yourself, because there's going to be screw ups, and you have to want to learn from those mistakes. Um, but it's just changed the way I see my relationship with my kids on a whole new level of I am taking care of myself. I'm working on my health, um, in order to be of service to my kids, in order to show up best for my kids. And that's ultimately why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for, you can't be working on your physical health anymore for egotistical, self-serving reasons. Once you become a dad, you have to be doing it for higher reasons that are more closely and deeper connected to your values and what means the most to you. And ultimately, that comes down to raising these kids to be the better version of themselves they can be each day. I hate to say best version because that kind of like you're thinking about perfection and nobody's perfect. So just working on that better version of them each day. And that's how it's just changed my approach, is that I bring more intention into the relationship I have with them. And like you said, I'm not perfect. I still have days and times, especially running a business, and where you have thoughts coming in your head. You're like, okay, how can I quiet those thoughts about things that I don't want to be focused on right now? I want to be focused on reading a book with my kid. I want to be focused on this walk and helping them ride a bike. How do I be more intentional? And I think it just comes with being more intentional with everything in your life, what you eat, the movement you do with yourself, you do, and just having that all be connected to, how can you form deeper relationships with your family through these things you're being intentional with. And when you're just having fun, like I like to think of activity as just movement that brings me joy. And you can get your kids involved with that. And so that's what I do. I do movement with them. I I incorporate this self-care with and make it tied to the way I connect with my kids. So that's really how it's changed my approach to being a dad, is realizing the effect that I like that had on me as a child. It's kind of taken it to the highest importance for me, is like meaningful human connection is one of my values that I live by. And, you know, with that, it's the agency of self, my physical and mental well-being. So I want to have control over my own actions, over my own well-being, so that then I can feel a deeper sense of control over my ability to meaningfully connect with my kids.
Mm. Okay. So a couple of quick themes that really came out of that. I take care of myself so I can selflessly serve in the best way possible, right? Being selfless.
Mm.
Deep, meaningful human connection, one of your core values,
Yeah.
right? And first of all, I know you deep, meaningful connection is what you learned by going through the process when we onboarded you into the mastermind group.
Yeah.
But knowing deep, meaningful human connection, and how you even started out this podcast of the experience of maybe not having deep, meaningful human connection. What lessons, or I'm sorry, not the lessons, but what specific activities and intentions have you done with your own family that have been like a launching pad for you to elevate those deep human connections now that you know that that's one of your core values?
Oh, man, that's a good question. My intentions have just been to, you know, involve my kids, like just involve them in things that bring me joy, so that way when I know I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I'm going to have a greater sense of being able to bond and connect with them. And one thing, I'll just bring up a quick example. So, I go out and rollerblade on this trail, and I like my wife will be out there. She'll be walking the kids on the stroller, and I'm getting good physical activity, and it's not easy to be rollerblading. But and then I'm like going by my son, and I'm just like giving him a high five. So it's just something as simple as just touch. I'm just more intentional about the way like like touching his, like rubbing his back and just like making him know that I'm there. That's something simple I do every day, is just like hug him and just, pick him up and carry him when he wants to be carried. And that's no easy feat now, the heavier he gets. Um, but that I'm trying to remember. I'm probably maybe I'm not answering the question completely, but
No, you are. You really are, but you're doing it through the lens of fatherly affection, right?
yeah,
Which by the way, insanely important. I think a lot of us, our generation of fathers, you and I, we were raised, I think, more of I provide, and to some degree, maybe I do more than that, but to some degree, that's my main job, right? Is to provide for my family. I think if you ask most men right now, this generation of fathers, and definitely our fathers growing up, they didn't get a whole lot of that physical affection.
Yeah.
And maybe our dads didn't really either, but I know their dads did not. But our generation, we might have gotten, I think we started to have that awakening a little bit with our dads, but maybe not to the degree that we do now, because we know, and a lot of guys out there, man, we have this perception that, well, if I'm affectionate with my kids, maybe that's feminine energy, or maybe that's left to the mom to do, or maybe that makes even me feel a little weird. And maybe it makes me feel a little weird because I didn't necessarily get that growing up. So how am I supposed to do that now? Right.
Yeah.
Again, though, I think if you get to the depths of a man's soul and the depths of the guys' souls who listen to this show, they're either doing it, or they really want to do it. They just don't know exactly what it looks like. But I think if you really look at the research, I don't have the research in front of me now to quote statistics or that kind of thing. Physical affection from a father, whether you have a boy or a girl, but especially a boy, is so important, because it creates that environment of psychological safety with your son.
Yeah.
It creates this feeling of physical protection and safety. And dude, I say this very carefully because I know that this means a lot to you. That whole feeling of, am I good enough?
Mm-hmm.
Do I measure up to what my dad wants me to be or sees, right? And maybe some of those things that you experienced growing up. That physical affection of having a hug,
Yeah.
or kiss, or even like, someone just putting their hand on your arm, just for a few seconds when you're in the car, like, hey, I'm just here next to you, and I
Yeah.
feel you, I see you, I know you're there. Sometimes that's even enough, right? To be seen, to be not necessarily heard, but to be recognized and connected in some way, right? Even with no words, right?
Yeah, I love that. And I completely agree with that. And I'll even add one thing I do say to my son, and both sons now is, we're doing nothing. He's not doing anything to perform. We're just there. And I just say, hey, bud, I love being your dad. Like, it's just such a joy to be your dad. And so that way it instills in him this, like, this knowledge, this understanding that no matter, he does not have to perform to understand his worth and his acceptance from me. So that's one thing I probably say it every day and I don't realize it, but I'm intentional about just sitting down with him in moments when we're just there, we're just being, we're human beings. We're not always, we always try to think of ourselves as like, we're always doing something in this busy world we live in, but ultimately what we are, we're human beings, and we don't take enough time to just be and sit still. But when I am with him and I'm intentional about creating that, even if it's just a minute, I tell him, hey, I love being your dad, man. It's awesome. And I think that I think that'll have a huge impact on him. At least that's my hope, and that it will. And you're probably gonna hear some babies crying in the
It's
background.
okay. We welcome that.
Yeah.
I mean, my 7-year-old loves to bomb my podcast guests. I have my 7-year-old carry on a conversation with Chris Voss, chief hostage negotiator for the FBI. And, if you see me looking down, it's because I've been taking notes on what you've been saying. And I literally wrote down the quote, "I love being your dad." So simple, right? And think about that for a moment, guys, you in the audience, right? And I'm thinking about it right now as I'm reflecting. What would my childhood have been like if my dad said those words to me? I just love being your dad. It makes me feel good, because one thing that I do say to my boys is, it's a privilege to be your dad, because it's a front row seat to the best show I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
say that, and it's true, right? I mean, like, I tell them that because I'm like, I get to watch how you view the world through your eyes. I get to go on these adventures. Like, you and I were kind of, chewing the fat before we hit record today, and you were asking me about, like, I took my 15-year-old to Vegas, right? And Vegas, it was a very family friendly trip. We saw Blue Man Group, we saw David Copperfield, we saw O, and we did some indoor skydiving. And that was his first time for all that stuff, and so was mine. doing
Yeah.
all that stuff. Right. And the cool thing about that is I'm like, man, I get to experience his first experience with my first experience, but I also get to do it not only with my eyes, but through his eyes, which is just an amazing experience in and of itself. I want to go ahead. You want to say,
After that, I think that's so important to just create new experiences. And like you guys did, just, you know, like more entertainment things, but
yeah,
also when you do a new experience with your kids that allows them to see you fail, something you're not good at, and you just come up with a vulnerability. I think that's super important too, to let instill in them this idea that okay, it's okay to fail, it's okay to learn. He's not perfect at this, and that's why I think that's also one of the things I do. I realize is that I involve my kids, and even though he's 2.5, he's not really able to do anything with me at like in terms of like play tennis. But like I'll go and hit tennis and see him, let him see me just completely miss or hit it over the fence or something like that. And I think it's just important to let him see us try, like let our kids see us try new things.
heck yeah, man.
Instills
Dude,
that growth mindset.
no, yeah, it is. Kids learn by watching us, right?
Yeah.
And I actually enjoy failing. I didn't used to. I do now, but it's only because I've learned from people who've been on the podcast who talk about growth mindset. I love to showcase what it's like to fail. Well, I screwed that one. Indoor skydiving.
Oh yeah.
The video was hilarious because you're supposed to relax when this freaking indoor fan is blowing you like 10 feet off the ground. Right. And I couldn't relax. I was all over the place. And my son, dude, I was just like, I was watching, we were watching the video and he just like, boom, like, oh, I do this all day, every day. Like I just walk right out here. The fan just blows me up. I just relax. And now I was fighting it the whole time. And because I was fighting it, I was all over the place. And then instead of like, it's kind of humiliating, right? Because like you're the idiot. You're like the idiot dad who's just like, I literally look like a clown floating in the air. And he thought it was so funny. I was like, I've never done it before, and that was a cool experience. And yeah, I was failing big time because the instructor was like, relax your arms, relax, you're fighting, relax. And I couldn't, but I was like, hey man, like now I know what to do next time. I'm good with
Yeah.
that. Right. I'm glad I wasn't jumping out of a plane doing that. So,
I
um,
think you brought up a good point. It's just embrace that. You have
yeah,
to embrace the silliness in this so that your kids can see that part of you too. So that way you're not trying to hide it and like
yeah,
preserve your identity or your image that you want to show to the world. Like you have this image you want to
yeah.
portray, and it's just just know that that's okay to show that, embrace it. So
The ego.
yeah, yeah, the ego.
I don't want to screw up, especially not for my kids. No, allow them to see you screw up
Yeah,
because that's how they learn. They're either going to, I mean, how many adults do you know that fail? Number one, they won't try something because they're afraid of failure. And when they do fail, they can't let it go. They relentlessly beat themselves up and focus so much on the failure instead of the lesson that's there, right? That's staring
yeah,
them in the face. Right. And we
absolutely.
can teach that by example. I want to go back to this, taking care of ourselves, right?
Yeah,
So I'm gonna point out three things here that, as you were talking about this, really hit me. I hope I remember all three because that was like 15 minutes ago. But the word guilt came up for me internally, and it's only because I've been doing this work for quite some time. The word selfish came up as you were talking about taking care of yourself, and the word time came up. And the reason those words came up is because there's this perception that most guys have when it comes to, well, I can't take care of myself. That's selfish. It, if I take 45 minutes to do something for myself, whether it's go for a run, go to the gym, read a book, um, whatever, take an online course, be in a mastermind call team for an
yeah,
hour, right?
yeah,
Because we
man.
do that as well. If I do that, that's selfish. I'm taking time away from work. I'm taking time away from family. Those are the two areas, right? That guys, we need to be in one of those two playing fields at all times, family or work or family. And if we're somewhere else, we're breaking the rules. Then there's this feeling of like, well, if I'm here doing something, man, I feel guilty. I should be at home. how selfish am I? I'm taking time away from my wife, from my kids. She's got the kids right now. Like, how selfish am I? And then there's this perception of time, and this time of like, I don't have the time. And what I will tell you before Brian answers this question is, guys, stop using that as an excuse. I don't have the time. We all have 24 hours in a day. When Russell Branson, the founder of Virgin, right? And now he's building spaceships and flying, the Amazon CEO to space.
Yeah.
Right. When sitting down for an interview 15 years ago, and I can't remember who the interviewer was, but they're like, hey, what is the key to your success? What's the number one thing that you do that makes you successful above all else? And he joked, he said 2 words, work out, even though that's one word. But that was kind of the joke. He's like, I work out. I take time for myself. That's my thinking time. That's my therapy. That's my self-care. Like, I can't show up in my business or create anything unless I am physically, mentally, and emotionally good with myself. And that only takes 30 to 45 minutes a day. So those 3 words, time, selfish, guilty, this is your business, right? You help men become healthier individuals, mentally, physically, and emotionally. What advice do you have as I say those 3 words?
It's a story you're telling yourself. That's really what it comes down to. Is it's an easy story you're telling yourself to basically come up with one major excuse to not fail or try something new or get out of your comfort zone. And the advice I would give you is to just start with compassion for yourself. Know that you inherently have self-worth, so that your worth is not dependent on the outcome. The outcome of losing X number of pounds, dropping to a certain body fat percentage, the outcome is completely, not dependent on your worth. Like, your worth is not dependent on the outcome of that. So if you start with this compassion and just knowing inherently and working on your self-image, your self-worth, and knowing who you are, that it's going to change the way you see yourself, so that you stop telling yourself this story that I don't have the time, man. It's guilty to go out there and do a workout. Or really what it is just like one big excuse to say, hey, I don't want to learn new things. I don't want to push myself. I don't want to step out of my comfort zone. I'm okay with where I'm at, even though it's just okay. It's not great. Um, so once you start to change the way you see yourself and have more compassion for yourself for this journey that is lifelong health and happiness, um, you're going to then change the way you see your behaviors and your habits. You're going to become more open-minded and want to try new things. Say, hey, that looks fun. Let me try that. And it's going to change the way you eat and change the way you see food, and become more intentional and conscious about what you eat, when you eat, how it fuels your body. And ultimately, what those 2 things are going to do is result in this changing the way you see the world and interact with others. It's going to just change the way you show up each and every day. So and it really comes down to starting small. It doesn't have to be some major like result. I'm more focused on systems-based goals versus outcomes-based goals. So the system of I'm going to instill better sleep every day. Like, that's my goal for this 2-week period, is to just focus on getting better sleep. And there's definitely gonna be some metrics around that you have to do, and some things to, some tools and strategies to do that. But ultimately, your goal is not to lose weight or to increase your energy. Those are just going to naturally happen, and change the way you're able to show up as a father, as a professional, as a husband. So that's what I would tell that guy. And basically, that guy is me 4 years ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people would argue that, say, no, man, it's about the results. Like, why charge after anything if it's not for results? And that, I think that can confuse. I do believe that results are important, right?
Yeah.
We have to have some sort of results, but not at the expense of making the journey or the systems miserable. right? So I think about, I went through a heavier phase. I did this thing probably 2.5, 3 years ago where I dropped my calories like just relentlessly, like erratically, like, and I shouldn't have done it. And I was trying to get lean for something, and it actually ended up being the polar opposite. My metabolism ended up just completely crashing, right? My body ended up holding on to more body fat, and I ended up gaining more weight. So I was just like, and for like 6, 7 months, man, I just couldn't lose body fat, couldn't lose any weight, no matter how hard I was working. My body was like angry. Like, yeah, I know what you were doing. I'm gonna hold on to every bit of weight now. You're not gonna lose anything. You're gonna try to starve me again. Screw you. That's literally like what happens. For those of you guys who don't know, it's metabolic syndrome.
Yeah.
So I was, I'll never forget, and this was one guy in our mastermind, Doug Schlenk, who he owns a fitness business here in St. Louis, Missouri. And so I hired Doug, and I'm like, hey man, like, get me on the straight and narrow. This is what I've done. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, what are your goals? And Doug's a dad as well. And I'm like, I want to be 8% body fat, 175 pounds. And I thought he was gonna be like, yes, let's do it. And he was like, why? And I was like, because that's where I want to be. He's like, yeah, but why? I was like, I don't know. I just, I feel good there. He's like, really? Why? And I'm like, and he kept asking why. And then it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't really know. Like, I don't even know where I got those numbers from now that we're getting this deep. And he's like, listen, man, we can get you to 8% body fat and 175 pounds, but you're a dad of 4, you run a full-time organization. You're going to be miserable and you're going to hate life. Okay. Yeah. He's like, what if you just flipped this entire perspective on its head and looked at it differently? I was like, okay, you have my attention. What do I do? And he goes, instead of being so focused on this goal of losing 20 pounds and going from 17% body fat, almost 18% body fat down to 8, what if you looked at this as, if you're working with me, let's do a journey of what your body could do. And let's do a journey of like, hey, I'll create the right nutrition program for you, and I'll create the workouts for you and all that. And then all you have to do is execute, and just don't be discouraged by the results. Allow your body to do its thing. And let's use this as an experiment to see what your body can do and how your body will respond. And don't worry so much about the results. The results will come. In the first 3 weeks, I gained weight. And I was like, this ain't working. He's like, remember what we said? I was like, I remember what we said. Now, fast forward 12 weeks after that, I had dropped 15 pounds. So I didn't lose the 20, but 15 pounds. And I got down to about 13% body fat, but I lost about 5%. He's like, how do you feel? It's like, man, I feel great. I feel really good. He's like, what's your mentality like? My mentality is great. How's your emotions? Man, I have so much more patience. I've been productive with my work. The organization's growing and I feel really good. He goes, did it take 8% body fat to get there? And I was like, touche. But that's a long way and a big story to share that, being so rigorous and focused on your goals is important, right? But it's not the end all be all. It's got to be the journey, and it's got to be the systems, right? Rely on the systems, because of what a lot of people do, this and I know this, if they don't get that result that they're looking for, and if they don't get it like quickly, because everything's like an overnight pill nowadays, oh, screw it, it's not for me, I give up, right?
Yeah.
That's that. And what does that do to us? I'm going to kick this back to you.
It makes us feel bad about ourselves, really, because we're trying to ultimately just get our self-worth from this outcome, this result that we want. And when we don't get there, we see it as insurmountable. One, when you start with such a big like outcome, like this maybe not unrealistic, but this larger outcome, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to give up more easily. Like if you had that goal of 175 pounds, if you had a trainer that said, oh yeah, like let's that's awesome, let's do that. Like if you hadn't had Doug to get you out of that mindset, first 2 weeks you gain weight, and you're like, you probably would have, I'm out, I'm done, discouraged, because you're going to see that, like that's what the story of weight loss is.
Yeah. Hey, we tell those kids to be quiet. Tell them you're on the Dad Edge podcast. You need silence.
Great. Be quiet.
Oh, that's great, man. Hey,
Um,
go ahead.
so
Yeah.
man, he's excited about something. Let me,
Yes. No, he's fine.
all
It
right.
makes the
So
show better.
let's really, man, now so where was I going with that? It gets you discouraged easily. And um sorry, I need you to I'm sorry, what was the question? I
This
don't even
I want you guys to listen up right now because what this is making the audience and me love you even more, man, because this is real dad life. The kids are
yeah,
screaming in the background. I'm surprised I haven't been bombed yet by one of my kids. But no, you already answered it, which is if we focus on the end all be all of the result, it number one, two things could happen. Number one, we're going to quit early, quit on ourselves because we're discouraged. Number two, it will make that journey hell
yeah,
instead of like, hey,
absolutely.
let me stick. I need to be disciplined on the system, right? I'm going to do my part and be disciplined on the system. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do A, I'm going to do B, and I'm going to do C. Now let me see where this journey is going to take me versus like, this is where it has to take me. Because sometimes it'll even take you to a better place that you didn't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
I want to switch
How
gears.
I'm going to phrase it to even your
Yeah,
audience like, how might enjoying the process change the outcome you get? How might it make your life better if you just focus on enjoying the process and just, yeah, looking for joy in that journey versus looking for strict outcomes?
that's a
So
beautiful question. Where'd you learn that from?
I don't know. I don't know how I learned this. How might you question? I may have been in this mastermind I'm a part of.
How might we question? So much better than the why can't I question. You know, the
Absolutely.
weak minded questions, what we call the how might we question is the generative question, the solution based question. So, like, for instance, guys, you probably have heard me talk about this, but like, why can't I communicate with my wife? Why can't our intimacy be improved? If we're asking ourselves those questions, we're going to get really bad answers back. You know, the mind is like Google, whatever you put in that search bar. Oh, you want to know why you can't communicate with your wife? Here it is. You're because you're closed minded and you have no patience and you don't want to open
Yeah.
up. Now, if you ask the question, I'll kick this back to Brian.
How might we?
How might we improve
Oh, I'm sorry.
communication?
How might we improve our communication with our wives? How might we, um, yeah, show up a better person? How might we get in a workout? It just opens the door for all these
Does.
possibilities, and it makes you be more curious, and like you said, open minded,
Yeah,
just to the opportunities to to grow. And that's really what it ultimately comes down to is growth,
agreed.
growth of
Absolutely.
ourselves.
Growth. And when we think of growth, right, we don't think of like the finish line necessarily. We're always growing, right? We're always evolving.
Mhm.
So I want to kick this back to the mastermind that you've been a part of quite some time. You know, you're building an incredible business. You know, you're a W-2, you're a full-time worker as well, but you're also building a business around helping men in particular. And is it only men or is it women too?
I work with men, but I've had a lot of women reach out recently, and
Yeah.
I don't think why not? Like,
Yeah. Why
how
not?
might I help women too? Right?
There you
It's like,
go. Beautiful question.
yeah,
But what has it been like for you as far as coming into the mastermind and being surrounded by all these other men who also own businesses? Um, what are some of the strategies that you've implemented since being a part of the group, and how's that elevated your business and growth?
the strategies I've implemented have really been focused on communication and just appreciation, acknowledgement, just being authentic, and just asking myself this question. Mark asked me the question. It's like, who do I need to become in order to serve the people I want to serve? That was, I think, when I shifted my mindset towards that, that ultimately helped me just open the door to the possibilities of like, okay, that's a generative question of who do I need to become um, to serve the people and make the impact that I want to make. So, but ultimately, what it comes down to is just the skill of communication is what I've taken away from this mastermind, and just how important it is to focus on communication, to focus on being authentic and having good intentions. And I know that the strategies will come, but I've tried to keep it as simple as possible because I don't want to get, I'm not trying to focus on this end outcome again. I'm trying to build up small wins and get inspired by the guys around me. That's one of the huge things that comes out of this is the inspiration. I get from seeing other guys in our community just, you know, do amazing in their businesses, and and also what I am able to give to them in terms of helping them with their health and wellness. So it's a two-way street, and there's a lot of screaming at the end of this, but
It's all good, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
So um, I'm grateful for my wife who is, a quick shout out to my wife real quick, who is, I know she'll be listening to this episode, and I know she's got to be wrestling an infant down there, or, trying to help an infant out. And at the same time, get my 2.5-year-old son, because she knows I'm doing this right now and she knows how important it is, but I know she's doing the best of her ability to,
Yeah.
to ultimately you don't want your kids to just be like, you don't want to silence them. That's not something you just want to, that can really damage them if you're just like, keep quiet. Like that's, so yeah.
You must be listening to our house. No, I'm kidding. Well, let's wrap this up and get you back to her. But just some notes that I took here, right? And some really cool themes that emerged. And by the way, guys, like I was saying, we recorded this before. Everything happens for a reason. There were things that came out of this conversation that definitely weren't there the first go around, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I actually expected. I was like, we'll probably talk about the same stuff. I'm so glad we didn't. I don't even think we touched on anything that we talked about the first time. But your mental and emotional well-being is so important. So you need to make sure that you are constantly taking care of you, right? That's not guilt. That's not selfish. In fact, it's very unselfish. Physically present, right, isn't gonna cut it. You have to be mentally and emotionally present as well as a father. So just being in the same space as your kids, we talked about that. Also, deep, meaningful human connection. Right? That anybody listening to this show and listening to your message, Brian, that's important to them. But I love the example that you shared about, like, I just love being your dad. And sometimes the physical affection. And it doesn't even have to be an all out like big old hug. It's just like, hey, I'm just touching you on the shoulders. I walk by. And I love how we ended the show as far as having compassion for yourself and enjoying the journey and the systems, right? And not necessarily being so extreme and being tied to the result. Now, you need to be focused on the result. You need to constantly be assessing, is my strategy working to get the result that I want? At the same time, it shouldn't completely be this process and journey of like misery at the same time, right? So I've really enjoyed this, man. I want to make sure you've got one big announcement though, and I want to make sure that you dropped this on me right before we started recording today, but you started working with one of our previous podcast guests here.
Yeah. Quick shout out to Sean Tollison, who he said he went on the similar health journey that I did. And I just reached out and just was appreciative of his story. And now we've gotten in conversations, and he's asked me to be the lead coach for his group health coaching community. And I'm just super, super pumped and excited to have this opportunity to help instill this mindset and this systems based approach, this journey based approach to wellness on a larger scale with, an established and really awesome business that he's got started too. And so that's my announcement there, that it's just a huge opportunity for me and him to do some amazing work and impact a lot of people's lives. So
Congratulations, man.
thank you.
And
And that would have been possible without you guys. Seriously.
well, hey man, you're an action taker, and I've seen that happen quite a few times in the mastermind. I asked you how the guys have supported you in the mastermind, but I also reflect upon all the times that you've supported the men who are part of the mastermind, right? And to see your journey and to see your business grow, to see your family grow too, because I've gotten to see that. You got this new little guy in your house now. But I just want to make sure, if the men want to contact you, or if they want to connect with you, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best way to do that is on Instagram. Is just find me at Bisher Coaching on Instagram, or reach out on email, same thing, at gmail.com. So if you have anything, even if you just want to share your story, I'm open to conversations. I love connecting, as was the theme of this episode, but just open to great conversations and powerful, life-changing conversations, because
Yep.
that's what I love doing, just having that life-changing conversation.
But Brian, we answer every question with good, fine, or busy. I'm just
Yeah, I
kidding.
hate the word busy, man. I'm gonna challenge everybody in your
Yeah.
listening to your show right now. Try it for a week. Swap the word busy with blessed.
Right. Yeah.
Work's been busy. Well, I've been blessed at work. I've had a lot of things coming in on my plate. If we just make that one swap with word busy for blessed, then it just really shifts your perspective on what, like you said, first world problems. Like, it's a first world problem to have a job and to get a lot of work to have. A lot of people just love to have a job. So just imagine all the people that would love to have a job, and just think about how blessed you are to have one.
Yeah.
So
Not only that, have you ever noticed, and those of you guys in the audience too, have you ever noticed somebody's body language when they answer a question with busy? There's always like that sigh of like, it's busy, man. Like you can like literally feel their stress, right? But if you say the word blessed, you can't say the word blessed like, but I'm blessed, man. Like you can't say that word with a negative body language and a negative voice tone. It just doesn't happen. And the other thing cool is that if you do take that challenge that Brian talked about, and if you replace the word busy with blessed, watch how the other person responds.
Yeah.
I guarantee they'll probably perk up, that your body language and energy will be contagious, right? Which that person might need that in that moment because they might be busy.
Or my second favorite response to that is not bad. Okay.
Not bad.
Not
Yeah.
bad, but you're not telling me what you are. Tell me what you are. And if you want to level up that, instead of responding not bad, consciously try to make it a 3-syllable word. I'm fantastic. I'm wonderful. Come up with 3-syllable words and just try to reply to people like that, and to see how they respond to that as well.
Yeah.
So,
It's amazing, man. I still remember I worked in a gym through college. That's how I paid for college. I was a trainer, and there was actually the guy I'm talking about. His name was Brian, and he was very, very into his spirituality, very Christian, but he was always in this phenomenal mood. And when I saw him at the gym, because I saw him every day, be like, "Hey, man, how are you?" And be like, "Man," I am blessed, man. How are you? And he was always like, you walk away. I mean, here we are 20 years later after I'm out of college. I'm still talking about Brian, who has red hair, right? And worked out every day. And he just gave that energy. And every time I saw him, no matter what mood I was in, I felt uplifted because I just got that response, right? That was a very contagious response. So again, very unexpected. I didn't think we were going to be throwing this challenge out there, but guys, for the next 7 days, don't use the word busy, don't use the word good, and don't use the word fine. Blessed.
and I think what you said, just to end it, Larry, people don't remember what you said. Well, although you did remember what he said, they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So,
Boom. Exactly.
boom.
Well, again, guys, we are talking to Brian Bisher, and we're going to have all his Instagram handle in the show notes today, as well as his email. If you want to connect with him, have more intentional, I wrote it down here, deep, meaningful human connection. He is obviously your man for that. You can find all the show notes at thedadedge.com/Friday 13. Oh my God. I didn't even I didn't even realize that is the actual that's how we're identifying the show, Friday 13. You guys can't forget that one. thedadedge.com/Friday 13. This is Fierce Friday, episode number 13. Brian, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. And I think we just flipped the switch on the unlucky number Friday the 13th, because this was a hell of a show.
Yeah, I agree, man. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Back at you, my friend. Gentlemen, go out, live legendary. And you know what? For the next 7 days, live blessed. Take care.